Hey guys, Barrett here. Well, as you can see, I have been having a great time trying out the new Selkirk Vanguard, the long-awaited brand new paddle from Selkirk. In this video, I'm going to talk all about it. I'm going to review the paddle, going to answer some common questions, give you an idea of what's going on, and I'm going to talk about the big subject, of course, which is the price. So if you'd like to hear all about the Vanguard, stay tuned. Now, before we begin, keep in mind that Selkirk is not paying me to do this review. A couple weeks ago, they reached out to me and asked if I would like to review the paddle. So they gave me a couple for free here. This is the Epic, and this is the Invicta. So they're not paying me to do this. They just offered to send me a couple for free. Pretty typical stuff. So first of all, to begin here, what is the Vanguard exactly? The Vanguard is essentially an upgraded version of the amped paddles. Now, I've been playing with these paddles throughout this past week, trying to play with them every single day in different situations, and I can definitely confirm at this point that this is essentially a much better version of the amped paddle. And I like what they did with that because back in late 2017, when they released Amped for the first time, they really changed the industry because they went to that thick core model. And since then, my articles on these reviews have gotten tens of thousands of views at this point in time. So they're really popular, and a lot of people use the Amped paddle. It's a very popular paddle. And so they didn't want to change things too much, it seems. And so essentially the Vanguard is a much better version of the amped paddle. If you currently have an amped like an Epic or an S2, you're going to get the same experience, just better. Okay, if you upgrade, if you choose to upgrade, we'll get to that, you're not gonna go down in terms of performance. You can only go up from here. So what's going on in terms of the specs? If you guys aren't familiar with Selkirk paddles, they essentially have 3 different sizes. A while back, they had the Omni here and the Maxima, but they don't make that kind of size anymore. As I showed you just a second ago, they have the Epic size, which is kind of their neutral paddle. They have the Invicta, which is more like kind of their aggressive side. And then they have their S2, pretend this is an S2, which is more on the control side, my mother's personal favorite. And in typical Selkirk fashion, you have a midweight version and a lightweight version. The color difference, just real quickly in terms of the color, they all come in red and black like this. The midweight version has the red on the top, and the lightweight version has black on the top. So just as a color difference here. Now, interestingly enough though, there's actually a version difference. There's 2 versions of this paddle. You have the hybrid version, which is this one, and then you have the power version, which is coming later on in, they hope, August. Keep in mind that this review is for the hybrid only because the power version isn't out yet, obviously. The Epic is exactly what you think it is. It is a standard size paddle. It's about as standard as it gets. The S2 has a longer face going down, but of course naturally it has a shorter handle. The Epic and the S2 are the same height. It's just that the face is longer on the S2, if that makes sense. The Invicta, of course, is more of the aggressive version. It is slightly more slender, but also slightly longer. This gives, if you're holding the paddle down towards the bottom, this gives you more weight further away from your hand, so you're able to really whip the ball. As you saw in some of that B-roll in the very beginning of the video, you can really whip this thing. So if you're already familiar with Selkirk paddles, everything works the exact same way in terms of the grips, the length, the size of the paddles, everything. It's still a thick core model and all of that good stuff. The question is though, how does it perform? I was so excited to get these paddles that after I shot some of that footage, I immediately grabbed the ball and just started dinking the ball up and down on the paddle. Interestingly enough, as I was dinking with the ball up and down, I thought to myself, oh, I I thought I got rid of all my jugs balls, all those jugs indoors. Why do I have a jugs indoor ball? And I looked at the ball and I realized, oh no, that's a Dura. Like it's an actual legit Dura. If you're not familiar, jugs indoor balls is what a lot of people used to use back in the day for indoor play. Dura is the outdoor ball. It's very hard compared to the jugs. They're very much so opposites, okay? I thought I was hitting with the jugs, even though I was hitting the Dura. That shows you how ridiculously soft this paddle is. And that's really the shocking thing about this paddle. It is so insanely soft. Now, of course, the question is why? Well, the core is essentially the same thing as it was with the Amped. However, it's the face that's different. And you can tell a difference between the Amped paddles and the Vanguard, definitely. The face, there's something going on with the carbon fiber. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know all the chemistry behind it, but they're using carbon fiber from a company called Toray, and they apparently are at least one of the big leaders in terms of carbon fiber in the world, or the US. I'm not really sure about that. But they essentially have 2 layers of carbon fiber on each side of the face, and apparently that's where the extreme softness is coming from. There were a couple of strikes that I made I think I was doing cross-court dinking, where I could actually not feel the ball. Now, this didn't happen very often. You can still feel the strike, but it was amazing to feel the softness of the ball. It was insane. But the performance is incredible. I mean, it is really amazing. It's consistent. It's soft. It feels great. It feels solid, you know? The miss hits, of course, you're going to get some miss hits, but they don't feel awful, you know? It's an amazing, amazing paddle. Now, I also got to try out the power side of the paddle. Keep in mind, this is the hybrid version. This is meant to be the control-oriented version of the paddle. Essentially an upgrade from the Amped, remember. But I did try some drives, and I tried first doing some drives with the Epic here, and something was a little bit off. I felt like I was giving it my all, but as I was coming through the balls, as I made that strike, it was so soft that I could hardly feel the ball. And I could almost feel more of the wind resistance of the paddle than I could the actual strike. You know, because again, it was so soft using the Dura ball. Now, obviously I got some good power on it. Keep in mind, power comes from your skill, not necessarily the paddle. The paddle has something to do with it, but it comes from your ability to do the stroke, okay? But there definitely seemed to be less power than, say, with the Prince Response Pro, which is the paddle that I use right now. Now, that's what I'm expecting, but then I moved to the Invicta, and that's where things got a little bit interesting. I still have my old Invicta lightweight hanging around, and the version of the Invicta that I got for the Vanguard was the lightweight version. So I was able to compare both quite easily. And interestingly enough, I thought I was getting more power from the Vanguard compared to the Amped. Now that's really interesting. I don't necessarily know why. This is probably a personal experience and anecdote, but it's something that I'd like to report to you guys, because I know a lot of you out there have the Invicta. And speaking of the Invicta, the Vanguard version of this paddle is absolutely sweet. There is something about the sweet spot that is at least expanded a little bit, or at least it feels better in some way. Again, the softness has a lot to do with that, but the power and the aggressive nature of the Invicta is absolutely still there, and it's the hybrid version. It's the control-oriented version. I can't imagine what the power version is going to feel like when that gets released in August. So in terms of a comparison, if you're looking at other paddles, let's say you have an old PaddleTech Element, right? Or, I mean, even like the Selkirk Prime, one of those, right? Or a Selkirk Neo, right? The differences between those paddles and the Vanguard is absolutely gargantuan. I mean, again, the level of control that you get with this thing is nuts. So if you're looking to upgrade, or you think like maybe this could be a good paddle for you, no question, going from one of those paddles that are like kind of less than $100 is going to be a huge upgrade for you if you want that control and softness game. But the big question, of course, is if you have an amped right now, should you upgrade? And that leads us to a conversation about the price. At the time of this recording, the price of the Vanguard is $200. Yeah. Now, from what I've heard and from what Selkirk has explained, it seems like a lot of that has to do with the past 2 years of them doing a lot of R&D, and also with this new carbon fiber, high grade carbon fiber stuff. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the chemistry of all that all that stuff. But the price is definitely an issue for a lot of people. The big question in a lot of your minds, of course, I know a lot of you right now probably have the amped paddle and you're thinking, should I upgrade? Of course, I can't answer that for you, but if you just bought an amped paddle, let's say you have the amped Epic, this bad boy, the lightweight version, of course. I've got the midweight here as well, but let's say you just bought this paddle. Should you upgrade? Probably not. I don't know if the $50 increase from the $150 amped Epic to the $200 Vanguard Epic is going to be worth it. If your amped paddle is brand new, there's a difference between the Vanguard and the amp. There's no question it's better, but I don't think it's $50 better. However, if you've had an amped Epic for a year and a half or 2 years, and the face is smoothed down and you've lost all the roughness on the face, and maybe the edge guard is coming apart, is it worth it to upgrade? Yeah, absolutely. No question about that. Now let's say that you're using the amped Invicta, either the midweight or the lightweight. Would it be worth it to upgrade to the Vanguard hybrid Invicta midweight or lightweight? Probably not. Again, unless your paddle is very old. That paddle is almost 2 years old now. So, if it's starting to fall apart, then maybe that's the case. If you're an Invicta user, I would probably wait for the power version of the Vanguard to be released in August. Keep in mind, I'm going to make a video about that as well. So it's definitely a tough call. I mean, $200 for a paddle, that's getting up there. And so if you're looking to upgrade, it's all about figuring out how much do you think $50 is worth in terms of value. Again, if you're coming from a $150 paddle like the amped Epic, I don't think that, again, if you just bought an amped Epic, I don't think the upgrade is worth that spread, that $50 spread. Now, if money's no object, go for it. You're going to love this Vanguard. It's incredible. But $50 more for the amped, that's tough to say. My overall impression of the paddle is it's just incredible. If we don't talk about price, if we don't talk about pricing issues, the paddle is unbelievable. It feels incredible. It sounds incredible. It feels great in your hand. The weight balance is excellent. Of course, the quality is just top notch. I mean, it's Selkirk. What do you expect? I think that in terms of whether or not you should get this paddle is going to depend on what you're coming from. If you're coming from a kind of a beginner, so to speak, paddle, you're looking to upgrade, maybe you're taking pickleball a little bit seriously and you just want to go ahead and get it over with, go for it. Especially if you're a control-oriented player. If you're more of a power-oriented player, let's say you're using the Invicta, I would hold out until August when they release their power version. I'm really excited for that one. All right, guys, that's the Selkirk Vanguard. I hope that was useful for you. I hope that helped to kind of clear things up in your head in terms of whether or not the Selkirk Vanguard could be a good choice for you. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. Of course, I have a bunch more stuff on my website, pickleballkitchen.com. This is what I do. This is my life. So I am here to serve you guys, the pickleball world. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. As usual, I'll see you next time.